welcome to our inaugural episode of Skol Sessions. It is the Viking Athletics podcast, and I am Erik Castiglione. I will be your host. I'm the owner and head coach at Viking Athletics. I want to start out by giving a big shout out to Joanna Leary, who designed our awesome logo up there, and I think she did a great job. Kind of encapsulates everything that this podcast is meant to be about. So thank you for that. Now, why are we doing a podcast? Well, this kind of started out as a weekly live video in our private Facebook group for the gym. We called it Whiskey Wednesday. Skol Sessions allows us to drink other beverages besides that, and depending on the time of day and who I have on the show, maybe alcoholic, it might be coffee, it might be water. Just opens up a range of things for that. No, but really, why are we doing a podcast? Well, it was a very well-received weekly video, and unfortunately not our entire membership is on Facebook, so not everybody had access to it. And rather than make it a small weekly occurrence, we want to be able to go a little bit more in depth, cover a wider range of topics, and hopefully reach a bigger audience. So expanding into a podcast made a whole lot of sense. As for topics that we're going to be covering, it could be pretty much anything and everything that's health, wellness, and fitness related. You know, in this industry, coaches are your guides along your journey, and we provide the front line of defense against chronic illness. Unfortunately, any idiot with a social media account can become an influencer and gain credibility as an expert. So our goal here is to help you kind of sort through the bullshit that you'll find online, figure out what's incorrect, what could be correct, and help you decide amongst what is correct, what's going to be best for you, and help you achieve your goals, what's going to be useful for you. There are some things that are patently wrong, and there are not a lot of, I shouldn't say untruths out there, but bits of information that are technically correct but presented incorrectly or applied incorrectly. So that's where we as coaches can kind of help you guys out, and that is mainly the reason that we're doing this. We maintain a blog that we post every week. Usually that's a little bit more focused on training or nutrition. We can kind of tackle bigger picture items here. So as far as the format of the show goes, my goal is to try to make this a monthly occurrence that's worth your while. When it's just me on the podcast, my goal is to keep time down to hopefully 20-30 minutes. If I can't break down a complex topic in that time to make you understand it, then I don't understand it well enough myself. There's no need for anyone to pontificate about things. You know, if you're having me rebut somebody's article or a video or something else out there, that's a different story. Or if I'm having a conversation with somebody and we're doing interviews and something like that, then obviously it's going to take however long it takes to get through that discussion. But for the most part, when it's just me, I don't want to talk your ear off, and hopefully you find this worthwhile. Why is it called Skol Sessions? Well, I jokingly already talked about the fact that it started as Whiskey Wednesday, and now we have a wider range of beverages. But more importantly, Skol is a play on the word skull. A Skol session is kind of a brainstorming session. And Skol is also Scandinavian for cheers. It's a drinking toast. So it fits in with our Viking motif, and we got a sweet logo to go with it. So today I'm drinking a Spot and Optimator. It's a little darker than the Oktoberfest, but as it is Oktoberfest, I have my nice stein here. So cheers, or I should say Skol. All right. Now that all that is out of the way, we're going to delve into today's topic. So if you follow our blog, you have probably read a massive number of articles on programming, why we program certain things, how we program, why we will always do our own programming, etc. I got the question earlier, why do I harp so much on programming? Why do I make such a big deal out of it? I also had someone else ask me, is this a good program? They were shopping for something online. So I kind of want to cover all of that. First off, is X program a good program? I would come back to that with a couple of questions. Sorry to answer a question with another question, but it's really the best way to tackle that question is it a good program for whom and for what purpose? So the whole point of programming is that it is supposed to cover the purchaser's goal, and it's supposed to help meet them where they are with their current level and get them to where they want to go. So what is the purpose of the program and for who? If I have a power lifter who's never even walked a mile, one of those guys that kind of parks as close as they can to the gym, waddles in, does a set of squats, waddles out, drives home, and they're trying to run a 5K, that's going to be a vastly different program to get them ready than it would be for somebody with running experience. So you gotta always ask, what is it that you're trying to accomplish and who are you trying to serve? And that segues nicely into why I'm so passionate about programming in the first place. I've been doing CrossFit for 16 years at this point, and it was when I took my level 1 that I first realized there is actually science behind strength and conditioning. Before that, I just kind of went to the gym, did whatever my sports coaches told me to do, never really questioned it. If I was there on my own, first gym experience was with my dad, and it was always 3 sets of 10 on every machine, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10. Never questioned why, that's just what I did. And when I was on my own, that's what we did. And later on, someone introduced me to a pyramid set where you do like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 at ascending weights and then go back down at descending weights. And I never stopped to question why, it's just what people did. And looking back at my years of training that I kind of spent doing that, you realize that it's maybe not the most efficient way to train, especially when you're trying to max out every time you hit the top of that pyramid and you get a lot of missed reps. You're not making progress with missed reps. So it was all about the bench press. Can I get a higher number than I did last time? And frequently the answer was no, because you're doing it at least once a week, if not multiple times a week. So had I applied what I know now back then, I would not have wasted nearly as much time in the gym, and I probably would have had much better results. So that's number 1. Number 2, I mentioned I've been doing CrossFit for 15 years, and around early 2010s when the games started to gain popularity, that was when your everyday gym started training the same way. And they're throwing programs at your average Joe that's meant for a competitive athlete, and people are getting hurt. And I'm sure many of you, if you tell a coworker or a family member that you're thinking about starting CrossFit, you probably get some pushback. Oh, you shouldn't do that. CrossFit's dangerous. Oh, don't do that. It's dangerous. You're going to get hurt. That is where that mindset came from. A lot of people started getting hurt when they didn't build fundamentals. They didn't build a base of fitness, and they immediately started jumping into high volume, high skill movements, and everybody got hurt. Slap tears were common. I think 3 years in a row, there were multiple Achilles tears during high rep box jumps, and yet they were still programmed in regionals. There's just no real thought behind it. So I wanted to understand why. Why were people getting hurt? Why was this being programmed the way that it was? So I decided to delve in a little bit, and after my L1, started attending a couple of specialty certifications. Let's do mobility. Okay, people are getting hurt because they lack range of motion. Let's work on their mobility. And that kind of opened my eyes, because it wasn't just a list of exercises for people to do. Kelly Starrett did a great job of presenting kind of a framework for athletes to kind of self-diagnose and for coaches to diagnose others. So rather than just teach you this is an air squat, it was more, this is why we do the air squat, and this is how it should be used. These are the points of performance that you're looking for, and this is when you're going to need to substitute it out. It's kind of the same thing with powerlifting cert. I actually wound up in Westside Barbell in Columbus, Ohio, and bought the first programming book I ever bought was Louis Simmons' Westside Book of Methods, and that was where my eyes were really opened wide as to the science behind strength training. So it became immediately apparent that what we were doing at my gym at the time had no real basis behind it. It was just, this is what's programmed because this is what I've seen programmed elsewhere, and it was people mimicking what had been done without really understanding the purpose behind it. So what I've discovered is that when it comes to gyms and gym culture, CrossFit gyms specifically, there's really no education into why we do things. If you go to the level 2, they give you a programming review, and it's very rudimentary. And they actually apply it. If I don't know how many of you actually read the Morning Chalk Up. It's a daily newsletter that comes out, and it's useful if you're trying to know what's going on in the CrossFit world. Occasionally they throw in some stuff from outside the CrossFit world, but it's all kind of CrossFit related. And they do a pretty good job of, they occasionally cover fluff pieces, they do community pieces, what's going on in the bigger community. They recently just had one in which they were comparing Matthew Fraser and Tia Claire Toomey, and it was, they both won 5 games, but who's the more dominant athlete? And if you look at event wins, Tia has 30, and I think Fraser was at 25 or something like that. So Tia has more first place finishes. So just looking at that alone, you would say, well, she has more first place finishes, they have the same number of titles, therefore she is the more dominant athlete. And what they did is they applied the level 2 programming review methodology to it, in which they kind of break down the workouts based on time domain. So you're looking at 1 rep max, you're looking at 5 to 7 minutes, 7 to 12 minutes, 12 to 17, 20 to 30, greater than 30. They broke it down into a list of time domains. Then CrossFit also looks at movements and kind of classifies them as weightlifting, gymnastics based, or monostructural. So anything involving weight is obviously weightlifting. All the body weight movements are gymnastics. Running, rowing, swimming, biking, jump rope, those are monostructural. And then you have mixed modality if you're mixing them up. They also looked at the format of the workout. So not just time domain, but is it a single modality workout? Is there only one thing? So like a trail run is just running. Is it a couplet? Fran is probably the most well-known couplet in the world. Thrusters and kipping pull-ups. Is it a triplet, which is 3 movements? If it's more than 3 movements, it's a chipper. So this is the very rudimentary method that they use to look at the workouts. And it's not bad if you're just using it to analyze what's already been done. But what the level 2 teaches you is that this should establish the framework of what you're doing. And they give you a list of all the CrossFit movements, and a balanced program is supposed to cover all those movements in a given month. And again, my question would be, why? Why am I programming muscle ups? If no one in my gym can do muscle ups, and we're going to throw in muscle ups because we haven't done them yet this month, who really cares? It also assumes that every movement is created equally. And I think, and I hope, we can all agree that it takes a lot more time to master a snatch than it does to master a burpee. So in terms of time, you're better spending more time on the more technical lifts. Or maybe you're not. It depends on your goals. If my goal is to develop a super fast engine because I'm going to be running some kind of short duration race, maybe I don't have time to waste learning how to snatch. And I would be better served doing less technical movements and building my engine that way. You have to look at what it is you're trying to train. So movements, the format of the workout, time domain, all of that, those are just tools to deliver the intended stimulus of the workout. So the issue I have with a lot of places out there, and with how CrossFit teaches people to program in the first place is they don't delve into what it is that you're actually trying to train. So that should be the starting point of every program, and that is completely missing from the conversation in most of the programs out there. And that is where you run into issues of people getting hurt. So if I have a list of movements and I've been hammering people's posterior chain all week and I've neglected push press, push jerk, shoulder press, push-ups, muscle-ups, overhead squats, and I decide, oh, I need to have a week where I do all those movements because it's the end of the month and we haven't done them yet, I'm going to blow out people's shoulders. So there's no classification for the muscles involved in those movements. They're just done for the movement's sake. So what I've discovered when it comes to most affiliates is there's kind of really 3 levels of coaching that you can get. Number 1, you have people that are just kind of guides. So they read off the whiteboard, hey, this is what we're doing today. And then hopefully they stay there to correct your form as you go through it. In some cases they don't. I've heard of affiliates where, the coach will read off the workout and then kind of go hang out in the office and tell you guys to go work on your own. I certainly hope nobody's had that experience, but I've heard that it's out there. Second level would be people that are giving you kind of strategy to get through the workout. So they might understand a little bit like, hey, this is a longer workout. You're going to be working for 12 to 15 minutes. So you're going to want to pace this one. And they'll give you some strategies like, hey, let's break up that set of 20 wall balls into 1 to 2 sets. Or, try to go 7, 7, 6, and that'll get you to 20. And they can give you some kind of strategies on how to tackle the workout. But again, a lot of times they won't tell you what it is that we are actually training. So let's look at 2 30-minute workouts. We've done a bunch in the gym, but let's say we're doing 5-minute row, 5-minute bike, 5-minute ski for 2 rounds at a conversational pace. And we're telling you that you're going to score it total calories. If I don't tell you that the goal of this workout is to increase the amount of blood that your heart can hold, and that only happens if you are maintaining a heart rate below a certain threshold, or you're not going to get that benefit, then as CrossFitters, you're probably going to push a little harder than maybe you want to, or maybe we want you to, because that is the nature of CrossFit, is super high intensity. So if I don't tell you that, hey, this is supposed to be low intensity, and if you turn it into a high intensity workout, you are no longer getting the intended stimulus of the workout, then you wouldn't have any idea not to do that. On the flip side, if we look at a benchmark workout, it's a hero workout called McGee. It's also 30 minutes long. I believe it is, I'm going to blank on the reps here, but it's 5 heavy deadlifts. It's 315 for men and 225 for ladies. And I think it's 10 high box jumps, 30 inches for men and 24 inches for ladies, and something like 20 push-ups. So it's a triplet, it's those 3 movements, but you're dealing with heavy weightlifting, an explosive gymnastics movement, and then a high volume upper body gymnastics movement. And if I tell you to do that at a conversational pace, chances are you're going to get hurt on the deadlifts. You gotta super engage your core and keep everything tight and actually drive with power. If I try to casually jump 30 inches, which is a high box jump, I'm likely to wipe out. So, my heart rate is going to spike because in those 2 movements alone, I'm generating high power output. And then when it comes to push-ups, maybe I'm strong enough that I can kind of do them casually. Maybe my stamina is at that point. But for a lot of people, your heart rate isn't even a consideration there because you're going to be limited by your muscular fatigue in the push-ups. And you're going to be forced to break because you just can't do anymore. So again, I have to consider what I'm trying to train there. And the answer to that would be you are trying to improve your upper body muscular fatigue when you are under metabolic stress. So, in other words, I have a super high heart rate, I've spiked my heart rate, and now I got to do a crap load of push-ups. That is the stimulus. The stimulus would not be, say, I'm trying to do unbroken push-ups. That can be a goal of the workout. That's maybe for someone that has great muscular endurance, but we need to go one step beyond what CrossFit teaches us to do, and we need to look at that. So this is why I harp on this so much, is I want our athletes to understand why we are doing things, what it is we're trying to train, what specific physical attribute we're building in you, and then you're more likely to comply with the goal of the workout and to push hard if we want you to push hard, or to back off if we're telling you to back off. I mean, the whole point is to make progress here. So you can't make progress if you don't buy in. And, you know, in terms of programs, there's a lot of good programs out there. You know, if you look from a strength perspective, I'm sure a lot of CrossFitters are familiar with the 5-3-1 program. They call it the Wendler program, written by Jim Wendler, but, you know, he actually wrote a bunch of other programs as well, so it's just the 5-3-1 program. There's the West Side Conjugate method. There's the Cube method, which is actually what I base a lot of our strength work off of. There's starting strength. There's the Texas method. All of these methods will work until they don't. And then you can move on to something else. It just depends on your clientele, the goals of your clientele, and how long they've been training, and whether or not you change it as needed. So it really does matter what the program is, and getting people to buy in is even more important. So a crap program with 100% commitment will still get you results, assuming that it doesn't get you hurt. So I guess I shouldn't say a crap program. I should say a less than optimal program will still get you results if you buy in 100% and you're consistent. A great program without any buy-in is not going to get you anywhere. So if you don't understand why you're doing something and you don't buy in, you're going to have a harder time getting results. That's the point I'm trying to make. As far as what is a bad program, there are probably two ends of the spectrum for that. Number one, a program that's too easy and doesn't apply enough stimulus is not going to help you make progress at all. So, for example, the last gym I was in, there were a group of us that got to a point where we would scale up literally every workout. We would wear a weight vest, and we would frequently use heavier weights than prescribed, whether it was a slam ball, wall ball, kettlebell, barbell, didn't matter. Everything that we were doing, the way that it was programmed out, the time domains, everything like that, no matter how hard we went, we felt like we didn't do anything. It just wasn't really enough repetitions or a heavy enough load or something like that. So we took it upon ourselves to make it harder. On the flip side, you have the gyms I mentioned right in the early 2010s when CrossFit was growing. And these are the people that are programming ridiculous volumes and heavy loads and advanced gymnastics without building foundations. And that's where people get hurt. So you either have a program that doesn't provide enough stimulus to allow for growth, or you have a program on the opposite end where people are doing too much and they're going to get hurt. The goal is to try to find a sweet spot where we're giving you enough stimulus to trigger an adaptation. Now, your responsibility is to follow the intent of the workout, make sure you're getting adequate food, adequate rest, and then you will have the adaptation that we're going for. But there's a lot within that range about what's a good program. So a lot of things can work. It really just depends on you. And that's why when we write a workout on the whiteboard, it's just kind of a starting point, and we're here to custom tailor that workout to you as an individual. Going back to my last gym, we used there is a company out there called the Level Method, and my gym did something similar. where you had the RX weight, and then you had advanced, intermediate, beginner, and you had to pick one, and you stuck with it. So, if you're doing Fran, and Fran weight is 95 pounds for men, and that's too heavy, you're going to go to advanced, which is 75. And it doesn't matter if 75 is too light for you and you want to try 85, you're stuck at 75. So I find that in instances like that, where there's no individualization, and this was a complaint that we had in my last gym, is people said they felt like they were being treated like cattle. Now, part of that was on the coaches. Part of that was that we didn't have any individualization for the workouts. And again, that was also limited by logistics. We had 10 barbells for classes of 30 people. So people are sharing equipment. So there was kind of a reason for it. But again, in order to be the most effective program for the most people, it needs to be written with our people in mind, and it needs to be tailored to the individuals based on their needs. So I've been in this long enough that I've seen when things work and when they don't, and I value you guys as members, and you're paying for a service, so it is on us to deliver the best possible results, because that's what you're paying for. And it starts with the programming and with the coaches tailoring that programming to you. And we're very fortunate in that we have a great coaching staff, and we have coaches that understand the why behind the workouts, and they can get you to buy in, they can get you to scale appropriately based on you and your needs. And that is what sets us apart from other gyms. And that's why I'm passionate about programming. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next month. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and Skol.